So the second question, because we kind of covered the sub questions of the first when we were talking, um, have you noticed any significant changes due to contraceptives, like in your body, but also in specifically like performance wise? Kim, do you want to go first?
Um, Truthfully, I started running after I had the IUD, so I haven't noticed anything different for me. I do know that if I was running back when I was on pills, it really would have affected me. And additionally, I wouldn't have been able to run for like a week because I would have been in bed. And so I don't notice any difference based on the contraceptive. And but I don't also know any differently because I've been running since I was 26. I'm about to be 36. So 10 years and I've had for 12. So for me personally, no difference. But
I've never been on a hormonal contraceptive. And that's like hearing you guys say like it's even things out for me is encouraging for me to hear too, because I'm just like but I'm historically anemic. That'd be nice if I could, put a pin in that for
Yeah.
related to period. And then yeah, just like I started using, and I mentioned this last time, the Natural Cycles app. So that's like the rhythm method, um, pairing that with condoms. Um, and it has a place where you can track like your moods. And I'm realizing that like my mood is all over the place so often. I have like 1 week where I feel pretty level. And that's just not, now that I realize that's happening, I'm like really interested in getting hormonal IUD. So yeah, I'd never wanted to take anything because I didn't want to deal with it when I was competing at a high level. I just wasn't comfortable trying to make that change.
So, when you were competing at a really elite level, and you historically have pretty heavy periods, how was that affecting your performance, do you think?
Um, when I was running that much and working out with that like intensity, my periods were still heavier than what my peers seemed to be. But it was more like if I had to do a hard workout on the first day, like that would be crappy. Um, and it just wasn't as severe as it is now. So I think combined with like all of the running, because I was running like 60, 70 miles a week, and working out hard twice a week and doing a long run, and then all the other like ancillary stuff, um, it made it lighter compared to what I have now. Um, and so it still sucked, but not as much now. Like I'm so exhausted like for 3 days, and I just feel like I'm trying not to ruin my clothes all day. Um, and so it's become like more distracting and would be a bigger problem, like I said, if I had to like go somewhere every day to like work in an office, like that would be a mess. So yeah, like it impacted it, but now I'm just more jaded by how how it's impacting my life now, when I'm not running 70 miles a week and doing a huge amount of intensity.
Wow, it would be really interesting to talk to you again about this very thing if you were to get an IUD and
Yeah.
um, give it 3 months to kind of settle in your body and see if it's really benefiting you the way it has some of us.
Yeah, because before I was like really adamant about like I wanted to get a copper IUD because I didn't want to mess with hormones, but the things I've been hearing as I've switched my perspective to being like I'm open to a hormonal IUD, I've been hearing more stuff that I'm like that might be a better fit for me. Like because it's like during my period I'll have a hard time and that sucks and I'm tired, but then I'll have PMS, and then around not during ovulation but after or before, like but actually after and before I'll have like huge mood shifts. And I'm like, this is just, it's not even like the stereotypical stuff where you're like, oh, when I ovulate, that kind of sucks. And when I have my period, that sucks. It's like 3 of the weeks out of the 4, there's like something going on. So would like to benefit from hormonal IVF the same way.
Oh, that sounds like a total bummer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I'm glad that I like decided to like track moods and stuff and like see patterns, over multiple months, because otherwise I would just be like, this is my life. And now I'm like, oh, there is something that I can try. Um, and like obviously I can develop like coping mechanisms without hormonal birth control, but I would like to try something in addition to that.
And this is a little bit of a side note, but hearing all of that, it really makes me wonder how many mental health issues that women have that go undiagnosed, or because of the correlation that it might have to their periods and things like that. It could really be a mental drain up if you weren't in tune with your body like you are. I feel like so many other women could potentially be diagnosed with depression or something, when really it's just like a major hormonal issue that could be.
Yeah. And there's a chance too that like I have like PMDD, and maybe that's part of it. Like I don't know all the way, but yeah, just even tracking like the days where I feel like significantly sadder, or like the days I have panic attacks, like putting that into a thing and then being able to look back and be like, wow, between day 9 and like 13, which is not during your period, it's not during ovulation, I will like have panic attacks, or just like have a day where I'm like so sad about myself, and then seeing that like that's happened over multiple months, like without looking back and being like, oh, it's day 12. Like I looked back over like 4 or 6 months and then was like, oh, there's a pattern here. Yeah. And knowing that, like, and then there's a time after ovulation where I'm just so fucking tired, and
Yeah,
that's not the normal arc that we hear. Like, oh, it's during your period, or maybe you'll have symptoms when you ovulate. Like I'm just having symptoms all the time, except for like 5 days where I feel amazing and I forget that all sucks, and then I get my period again.
So it's been a couple of years since I've had to think about this, and I haven't raced in those years. I was training for an ultra marathon last winter, and it was canceled, and I haven't done any of the virtual things. And anyway, all I can say is that it was very unpleasant to run when I had gained all the weight in my breasts. I was still running. I was running much shorter distances, and I was feeling like the pressure and weight of that. And I just was uncomfortable in my body. So I don't think that helped. Running is such a physical, in your body experience. And so definitely on the pill, I can't imagine that I would have felt great, like performing at a high level, but I also wasn't performing at a high level. And then the IUD, it's again, like the side effects for me based on how it had been inserted in my body, possibly. I mean, I really don't know if that was why I was having the experience I was having, or if it was just a misfit for me. But I do have my suspicions that it had a lot to do with the fact that it had not been placed correctly. And the side effects from that were worse than the effects that I have from my regular period. And I actually, my regular period, I love going running when I have the cramps. I find it very therapeutic to go and run, like, and even do a workout, like even go to the track and work my speed a little bit. And it, for me, is very therapeutic and gets me out of the pain and into, something else. And I feel almost energized on that first day for some reason, if I can will myself out of my house and go for a run, which is sometimes, that's the hardest thing to do. It's like, I want to just melt into my couch and fall asleep and wake up on the other side. And I find that if I can convince myself to get dressed, put my shoes on, leave the house, run, that I come back and I feel much better in a lot of ways. But the symptoms for me go down if I actually exercise and almost, if I push myself a little bit. I find that is good therapy for period cramps. But I don't have the really heavy blood flow. I have a different set of circumstances, but I do have pretty intense pain on the first day a lot of times. And I do experience mood shift around my cycle, and my husband knows when I'm about to get my period, or I'll get it and then he'll be like, no wonder you were such a downer yesterday. Or I can be very, explosive right before I get my period. I'll just have like some kind of, melodramatic breakdown. And it's kind of unfair for men to like place a label on you because of something that you go through cyclically that they never experience and cannot relate to. And you as a woman don't have much control. This happens in our body. I mean, there are things we can do to try to take care of ourselves, right? and checking into their bodies. And I think it's great to like your method, Nicole, of kind of monitoring what's happening, what your pattern is over the month. That's such a lovely practice to do, so that you can then start to respond to some of the things that you take note of in your own body. Like that, those are the kinds of things that we can do, or like start noticing what the patterns are, so that then we can like try to do something that helps us, that supports us in our bodies. But we all have such different experiences. It's really interesting. I actually love this topic, and hearing from other women about it, because we all aren't having like identical experiences either, which adds to the complexity of like what to do about it when you're an athlete or a runner or, you know, anyone with a period, right? Anyway.
Which is exactly why we started this series, to bring voices to it. And, you know, even with interactions with your best girlfriends, oftentimes we don't talk about these things. And that's exactly why Jackie and I wanted to do this, you know, talk about these topics and bring light to everyone else's circumstances, because we are all so different. But, you know, sometimes you can find someone who experiences something similarly and see what else is working for them. Like Nicole hearing about us using our IUDs. So yeah,
exactly. And it makes us feel like we're not alone in this too, being able to talk about it a little bit more and process it. And I think that's the big thing that's helped me too. I think Emily, you're next.
Yeah, actually, like very similar to what you shared, Liza, like just that breast gain, like weight gain and running was so uncomfortable when I was on the pill and even on the NuvaRing as well. And I would still, I think at that point, the longest runs I did was like 15 miles. But I would try to find like the tightest sports bra I could, because it was just like, I just need to hold it all in, because it was just so uncomfortable, which wasn't always good, but it just like, it helped me feel like, okay, I have control of my breasts versus they just did not feel like part of me at that point. And like when I trained for my 50K, I don't think I was on anything at that point. And then, yeah, since last March. And that's what I've noticed, because I'll do road and trails, and I've really noticed my performance increase. But I think a lot of it, what I've noticed is like the mental side for me. So when I have been on like the pill and NuvaRing, I found like, especially just right around when my period would come, I would have such a hard time like getting out of my head and just being able to enjoy running. And I'm just a lot of negative self-talk that was really hard to like come out of, versus now I can kind of identify it more and be like, oh wait, okay, that's not, yeah, kind of capture those thoughts and move forward. Whereas it felt like I didn't have control of that mind, which then that definitely, I feel like my mental side was definitely what was holding back kind of that performance side of things. And like, I don't compete necessarily. I do some races, but have noticed just even in the past year, trying to be more intentional with that process. And as I haven't had any hormonal input, and have just been like, it's been almost a year since I haven't been on any sort of hormonal contraception, that like I'm noticing just an ease with running more and being able to go longer distances and being able to increase my speed. And like what Liza was sharing too, during my period, it's like I'll have cramping the first day and the rest of the days are fine. It's not super heavy. So I like to try to plan even like doing a long run right before my period's coming. And then like that first day, especially making sure to have some sort of short run to help kind of, I say it like loosens the cramps a little bit, but move my body in a way that can, I guess, help with that, versus when I was on the hormones, I just felt even worse and was heavier bleeding, and it did not feel comfortable to run on that day.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's so, again, it's so interesting about everybody's different experiences. Mindy, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So last week when Jackie and I were running in, kind of prepping for this session, I was saying, I was like, gosh, it's so hard to remember what my performance was like as a teenager before I started birth control. So, I was 14, 15, 16, running track, playing basketball, running cross country. So very active then. And so I can't remember pre-birth control in my earlier years. And then, always being on something through the time that I was racing at a super high level. So it's hard to gauge what that effect was previously. And all I can gauge now is what my performance has felt like since removing that IUD 8 or 9 months ago. And for me, my hormones have been so erratic trying to stabilize. My performance has generally just felt crappy because I feel like I've gained a little bit of weight from it. But also it's the first time in 20 years that my body has had just a natural cycle. So it's been quite an educational experience watching my body try to stabilize and normalize. So generally speaking, my performance feels like it's decreased. I just feel a lot more fatigued, I guess, as I'm ramping up for my cycle. And I get a lot of bloating, and that obviously always makes us feel just really sluggish and slow when we're out running or something, or sitting on a bike and you're really bloated and you're wearing spandex or a hip pack around your waist, and it's like, oh, just everything feels disgusting. So generally speaking, my performance in the last year has felt pretty terrible. That's the moral of that story. So very interested to see how that will change again, postpartum someday. We'll see. Let's circle back on that question.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we should. I guess when I went on contraceptives, like in high school, I don't, other than like the weight gain, I don't really know. And then during college, like I said, I feel as though I didn't have like full hormones. I don't know how to speak to it better than that until like after I graduated college. Like I don't feel like I really had breasts or anything like it just didn't happen until like post college for me, I feel like. And then I have my IUD now, and I haven't really like raced because I've had it for probably a year and a half, and I haven't really raced with it in yet. So
how has your training felt in general since getting it?
That's a good question. Yeah, I felt pretty good. Like it's made all those symptoms like very mild. So in that way it's good. So you don't have like an upset stomach or anything like that. Like that's been really nice. Good in that way. And I don't have fatigue as much either. So that's another thing. So it's been good for, I haven't really thought about it that way, but yeah, all the symptoms wise have been like greatly decreased. So that has made training a lot better. But yeah, I definitely want to see like in a race. I've done some harder, or started to do harder workouts, and Nicole is training me, so I had a harder workout this week actually, and it went pretty good. So